I built my career on illusions, slipping in and out of roles like second skin. But the greatest performance I ever witnessed? The one my husband played right under my nose. For years, acting had been my life. I knew how to slip into character, how to fake emotions so convincingly that even I believed them sometimes. But no matter how many roles I played, one thing always grounded me: my real life, my real marriage. Or so I thought. My husband, Liam, had never been the type to hover around my work. He appreciated my career, sure, but he never got involved. The long hours, the unpredictable schedules, the constant on-set chaos. He never asked too many questions. That's your world, not mine, he would say with a casual shrug. And I was okay with that. I never needed him to be a part of my work. Until one day, he chose to be. It started subtly, a visit to the set here and there. Nothing too unusual. At first I thought he was just being sweet. Maybe he missed me. Maybe he wanted to understand my world better. And I loved that idea. But then something shifted. The frequency of his visits increased. Suddenly he had businesses nearby almost every other day, always lingering just long enough to catch a glimpse, never quite long enough to feel natural. I found it odd, but brushed it off, convincing myself that maybe he really was just being supportive. Then I noticed the shift. The lingering glances, the quiet smiles he thought I wouldn't catch, the way his body leaned slightly towards Hedner, like gravity had chosen a new center. At first it was just a glance, then another, then another. My new assistant, Ava, was young, eager, and efficient, exactly what I needed in my chaotic schedule. She handled everything flawlessly, always one step ahead of me, and apparently one step too close to him. The first time I caught it, we were in between takes. I was getting my makeup touched up, and Liam was across the room talking to one of the producers, but his eyes weren't on the conversation. They were on Ava. I watched as she laughed at something he said, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear in that effortless, practiced way. It was subtle, fleeting, just a second too long, just a little too familiar. Most people wouldn't have noticed. But I wasn't most people. I'd spent my entire life studying human behaviors, memorizing every flicker of emotion, every unsaid word. And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a performance. And I wasn't sure if I was the audience or the fool. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Letting them know I knew would only give them time to prepare. Instead, I watched. I let the suspicion sit in my bones, sharpening my senses. And once I stopped doubting myself, I saw everything. The way Ava laughed at Liam's jokes even when they weren't funny. The way he never touched her but kept just enough distance to make it look natural. The way their eyes met too often, like two people keeping a secret no one else was supposed to know. And then there were the small things. Ava started showing up to set earlier than necessary, but only on the days Liam was there. She changed her perfume. I noticed it because it was the same scent I used to wear when Liam and I first met. She stopped calling me ma'am and started calling me by my first name. That was when I knew she no longer saw me as her boss. She saw me as competition. The real test came 3 nights later. We were at a wrap party, one of those elegant candlelit events where everyone pretended Hollywood wasn't built on chaos and broken dreams. I knew Ava would be there, and I knew Liam wouldn't miss the chance to coincidentally run into her. So I decided to push them. I slipped into character like I had 100 times before, only this time the role wasn't scripted. I played the affectionate wife, rested my head on Liam's shoulder, laughed at his jokes, touched his arm in just the right way. I wanted to see if Ava would react, if he would react. And they did. Ava was tense all night, barely looking at me. And Liam? He was uncomfortable. The same man who used to pull me closer in public, who used to kiss my cheek absent-mindedly, suddenly felt like he didn't know how to touch me. That's when I knew, with absolute certainty, that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. And now it was time to flip the script. The moment came when I least expected it. After the wrap party, Liam fell asleep early. Too much wine, or maybe just exhaustion from keeping up the act. Either way, he left his phone face up on the nightstand, something he never did. I wasn't planning to check. Not really. I had already seen enough to know what was happening. But then his phone lit up. A flash of light, a single preview. Just enough for the words to carve themselves into my brain like a branding iron. I miss you already. Tonight was torture. I hate pretending we're nothing. I miss you already. Tonight was torture. I hate pretending we're nothing. I went still. For a second I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My fingers curled around the sheets, my nails pressing into my palms so hard I almost drew blood. My mind screamed at me to ignore it, walk away, pretend I never saw it, but my body moved on its own. This was it. The final confirmation. Slowly, carefully, I reached for the phone. Face ID wouldn't work for me. But Liam was a deep sleeper, and I knew exactly what to do. I lifted his phone, tilted it toward his face, just enough for the sensor to register. The screen unlocked. His messages were exactly what I expected. Hundreds of texts. Flirty, secretive, reckless. Some of them were new, others went back months. He had hidden the conversation, but he hadn't deleted it. Like he wanted to keep a record of their affair. Like it meant something to him. I scrolled, my heart pounding. I hate sneaking around. When are you going to tell her? She's getting suspicious. I think she knows. You look so good tonight. I wanted to kiss you in front of everyone. And then the worst one. It's always been you, Ava. The air left my lungs. I gripped the phone tighter, willing myself to stay calm. I had what I needed. I didn't scream, didn't throw the phone, didn't wake him up and demand answers. Instead, I did what I had been trained to do my entire life. I captured the scene. My hands didn't even shake as I took screenshots of every text, every picture, every secret they thought they had buried. I uploaded everything to my cloud drive, sent the screenshots to a hidden email account, saved them in 3 different places. By the time I put Liam's phone back on the nightstand, my heart was steady again. For months he directed the perfect act, gaslighting, deception, stolen glances. But what he didn't know? The stage was mine now. And the final act? It belonged to me. I barely slept that night. Not because of pain. That part was already gone. What replaced it was cold, calculated clarity. Liam had spent months lying, manipulating, and gaslighting me into thinking I was paranoid. Now, I had all the proof I needed. But exposing him privately wouldn't be enough. He didn't just betray me. He made me doubt myself. So I decided to do something much worse than simply confronting him. I would let him destroy himself. I started by planting the first seed of doubt. The next morning, over breakfast, I acted completely normal. I smiled at him, asked about his plans for the day, even kissed him goodbye before he left for work. He had no idea I had seen the messages. But right before he walked out the door, I added, "Oh, by the way, we're having dinner with Ava tonight. I thought it'd be nice to get to know her better." Liam's reaction was priceless. He froze mid-step, just for half a second. Not enough for a regular person to notice. But I wasn't a regular person. I was trained to read micro-expressions. He forced a chuckle. "That's, unexpected. Why?" I tilted my head, pretending to be oblivious. "She's my assistant. And since you two seem to be getting along so well, I figured it'd be nice." His lips parted slightly, but he had no excuse to refuse. He was trapped. Ava was nervous when she arrived at the restaurant that night. I could tell from the way she fidgeted with her necklace, her forced smile, the way her eyes kept darting toward Liam for reassurance. I pretended not to notice. Instead, I spent the evening playing the role of the perfect wife. I laughed at Liam's jokes. I held his hand across the table. I even complimented Ava on her hard work. And then, when the tension in the air had just started to settle, I dropped the bomb. With the grace of a seasoned actress delivering her final monologue, I pulled out my phone, turned the screen toward them, and let silence do the talking. The messages between them glowed in the dim light. Undeniable, unerasable, a masterpiece of betrayal. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Ava gasped. Liam's face turned ghostly pale. His entire body stiffened. He didn't even reach for his phone. Didn't try to make an excuse, because there was nothing to say. I leaned back, folding my arms, watching him like a director watching an actor forget his lines on stage. "What's wrong, honey?" I asked sweetly. He blinked, his throat bobbing as he tried to find his voice. He was unraveling, exactly like I planned. The call came late in the evening, right when I had just finished dinner. I almost didn't pick up, but the persistent buzzing on my phone made me sigh in irritation. His mother. I considered ignoring it, letting her stew in whatever self-righteous tirade she was about to unleash, but something in me wanted to hear it, to finally lay everything bare. I slid my finger across the screen and brought the phone to my ear. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Her voice crackled through the speaker, thick with barely restrained rage. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my legs as I swirled the wine in my glass. Good evening to you, too. Don't play games with me, she snapped. You've humiliated our family. You've turned my son into a laughingstock. Do you think anyone will respect him now? Do you think people will forget? I scoffed. Respect? You're worried about respect? Maybe your son should have thought about that before he crawled into bed with my assistant. You always put yourself first, she spat, ignoring my words. Your career, your image. Maybe if you had been a better wife. A better wife? I cut in, my voice sharp enough to slice through her venom. You want to talk about me being a better wife? Fine, let's talk about that. And so, I laid it all out. I told her how for years I'd been the only one keeping her son afloat. Every bill, every failed business attempt, every loan he had given them was actually my money. I'd worked late nights, taken extra roles, sacrificed my time and energy just to make sure her family never struggled. And you know what else? I continued, my voice dangerously calm. Remember when you were in the hospital last year? The private room, the specialists, the VIP treatment? You thought your son paid for that? He didn't. I did. Every single cent. Silence. Then a shaky breath. Not from me. From her. That's not true, she whispered, but her voice lacked the bite it had before. I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, but it is. And since I was never good enough for you or your son, you won't mind figuring out your own finances from now on. You wouldn't do that, she said quickly, desperation creeping into her tone. You wouldn't just cut us off. You know how much we need? I would, I interrupted, and I just did. Her arrogance wavered, then it cracked. You don't understand. She tried again, her voice higher now, frantic. We have expenses, we have bills, the mortgage. Then ask your son, I said flatly. You know he doesn't have any money, she blurted out, and there it was, the truth. They had never thought about what would happen if I left, never imagined a reality where my money wasn't theirs. Please, she whispered now, all the venom gone, replaced by raw panic. We need your help, just until things settle. I should have felt satisfaction, should have felt vindicated hearing the sheer, desperate realization dawn on her. But all I felt was nothing. You called me selfish, remember? Said I only cared about myself. So why stop now? Consider this my greatest performance yet. I'm finally playing the role you always cast me in. A beat of silence, then another. You can't do this to us, she whispered. We're family. No, I corrected, my voice quiet but firm. We were, but now? Now you and your son are just two people who took too much for too long, and the worst part? You weren't even grateful. And with that, I hung up. The inevitable collapse. The fallout came quickly. Liam lost everything. His reputation, his so-called business connections, even the friends who had once stood by him. No one wanted to associate with the man whose entire life had been funded by his wife. His mother tried calling again, then texting, then begging. I ignored every single attempt. And Liam? He reached out one last time, spewing some half-hearted speech about regret, about how he never meant for things to get this bad. He said he had made a mistake, that he was sorry, that he missed me. I let him talk, let him hear the silence stretch between us. And when he was done, I only had one thing left to say. You told me I was paranoid. Then I hung up, and just like that his story ended. And mine was just beginning. The calls started coming more frequently. At first I ignored them, just like I ignored the flood of messages from Liam's mother, his sister, even a few of his friends who had the audacity to tell me I was being cruel. I knew exactly what they wanted. Money, stability, a way out of the mess he created. And they expected me, as always, to clean it up. It had been 2 weeks since I cut Liam off. At first I thought he might manage on his own, that maybe he had some secret stash of money tucked away, some plan to scrape by. But the thing about people like Liam, they never plan for their safety net to disappear. They assume it will always be there. And now that it was gone, he was sinking fast. I answered the call out of pure curiosity, nothing more. I made a mistake, he said immediately, skipping any pretense. His voice was rough, almost strained. It reminded me of how he used to sound after failing another business venture, except this time, There was no one left to catch him. "Did you?" I said, keeping my voice light, almost indifferent. "I was stupid," he continued, desperation creeping in. "I was selfish, but you don't have to do this." I let out a soft laugh, shaking my head. "That's interesting, Liam, because a few weeks ago, I was just paranoid, wasn't I?" There was a pause, just long enough for me to know he had no answer. "We can fix this," he said, rushing now. "I'll make it right. Just don't do this to my family." And there it was. Not an apology for losing me, for betraying me, but for losing his lifestyle. "That's the thing," I said calmly. "This isn't something I'm doing to your family. This is something you did to them. You took me for granted. You used me. And now you're paying the price." "I'll pay you back," he blurted out, as if the idea had just struck him. "I just need time." "I don't want your money, Liam," I interrupted smoothly. "I never did, but I do want one thing from you." He latched onto that like a drowning man desperate for a lifeline. "Anything," he breathed. "I want you to sit in the mess you made. I want you to feel what it's like when no one comes to save you." I could hear his breathing shift, hear the panic truly setting in. He was realizing, for the first time in his life, that there was no fixing this. I hung up. I never answered his calls again. It wasn't until a few weeks later that I saw his name pop up again, this time in a news article. "Former businessman faces bankruptcy. Betrayal scandal destroys reputation." I clicked the link out of curiosity. Apparently his investors had fully pulled out. The business contacts he thought would always back him. Gone. His family. Forced to sell their house. The one I had paid for, the one they had once told me would never belong to me, no matter how much I contributed. And the best part? The comment section. Imagine gaslighting your wife for months just to get exposed like this. Not only was he cheating, but he was living off her money the whole time. Wow, that's next-level loser behavior. When you fumble the biggest bag of your life and end up homeless, congrats, dude. I smiled, not out of spite, not even out of satisfaction. Because the truth is, I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to destroy him, humiliate him, make him suffer. I'd already won. Because at the end of the day, the worst punishment isn't losing someone. It's realizing they never needed you in the first place. I closed the article and locked my phone, letting out a breath I hadn't even realized I was holding. It was strange, really. I had thought this moment would feel triumphant, that I would feel some deep sense of vindication watching Liam's world crumble the way he had once tried to make me feel small. But all I felt was relief. There was no longer a part of me that wanted to reach out to demand an apology, to ask why, because I didn't care anymore. For the first time in years, I was free. A few days later, just when I thought things had finally settled, the call came. It was a number I didn't recognize, but somehow, deep down, I knew. I let it ring. Once. Twice. Then on the third ring, curiosity won. I pressed the phone to my ear. "What do you want, Liam?" Silence. Not the cocky, arrogant silence he used to weaponize, but something different. Something hollow. "I don't know," he said finally, his voice quieter than I had ever heard it. I almost laughed. For the first time in his life, he was at a loss for words. "You shouldn't have answered," he admitted. "I know you're done with me. I don't know where to go from here." For a brief second, just a brief one, I felt something close to sympathy. But then I remembered all the times he had made me doubt myself. All the times he had told me I was crazy, paranoid, insecure. "That's not my problem anymore," I said simply. "I miss you," he said. And I could almost hear the strain in his voice. The desperation of a man who had lost everything. "No," I corrected. "You miss what I did for you. You don't miss me, Liam. You miss the life I built for you. You miss the safety net you never realized was mine to cut. And now, you're free-falling. Enjoy the drop." And that's why you lost me. There was nothing left to say. I hung up, and this time I blocked his number for good. Liam's downfall was inevitable. The moment he underestimated me, he lost everything. His mother tried calling again, a desperate attempt at rekindling whatever kindness she thought I had left for them. She begged. She apologized. She said she hadn't meant the things she said. I let her voice fade into silence before calmly responding, "That's nice. Good luck." And then I hung up. There was no dramatic ending, no final confrontation, no drawn-out revenge. Just peace. And honestly, that was the greatest victory of all.